I didn't bring any water, but it is what it is. Can't go back and get it. But thank you everybody for being on. I'm on multiple platforms. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, to protect today's message. I'm on. Welcome everybody. Hello. Thank you for being on with us today. Spending some time with us. Last time in this place for a little bit. Um, and getting ready to get back on the road and travel some. Thankful and grateful for everybody who's joining us on multiple platforms. And we really do appreciate your time, talent, effort, energy, greatness, goods, prayers, gifts. You guys lend so much stuff to what we're doing here. We're thankful for you guys. Once again, we give all praise and honor to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. For those who need a little extra and don't believe in us just doing things through our culture and our lens, you have that there as well. And hopefully you guys are doing well today. And we're thankful and grateful. We got a little bit of a cover from the sun. So hopefully we won't have any problems with anything overheating. And thank you to everybody for being on, whether you're on YouTube or TikTok, whether you're joining us live or whether you're going to watch this later on. We appreciate you. And shalom, peace be upon everybody. Hello let's see, Minister Sonia. How you doing? Sister Barbara, how are you doing? Big Brother Thomas, how are you doing? Loria Johnson Vargas, how are you doing? I can't remember if it's Loria or Loria. Either way, we're grateful. Thank you. I apologize for mispronouncing the name. And we're thankful for you. We honor you. How you doing, Poppy? How you doing? We today I'm going to talk about in this frequently asked questions series, FAQ series, is part 31. Um, Today I want to ask a simple question, or not even ask a simple question, make a simple statement, but it's something that will bless you on your journeys and what you're trying to do, no matter what you're trying to do, if it's activism, if it's spirituality, if it's having better energy, if it is, just trying to be a greater person, trying to be an example to your children, etc. I want to talk about limits, and really the question is, I want to talk about whose limits are you under? Right? Whose limits are you under? If we can talk about that today. And thank you to the moderators, ministerial staff. If it's your first time joining us, for one time at many, etc., we appreciate you. I want to talk about whose limits are you under? Because here's the deal. All of us, no matter what our canonical viewpoint is, no matter what our motivational thought process is, no matter what motivates us, no matter what we strive for, no matter what we're fighting for, fighting against, you are supposed to be limited while simultaneously you are not supposed to be limited. And that's messes with people, right? But it's truth. It messes with a lot of people when we say that. But let me say it again. Even if it messes with you, it's I'm giving you something that's righteous. Righteous just meaning right legal standing, right? I'm giving you something that's going to help you with kingdom law, marital law, natural law, universal law, law of attraction, law of first mention, admiralty law, law of equity, common law. The list goes on, right? Um, I'm trying to help you with something that's going to allow you to see something. See, we are supposed to be limited, right? But also, too, we are not supposed to be limited. It's a very interesting statement. However, it's very true. How you doing, Minister Tamara? How you doing? Is it Dab Bod? Okay, thanks for being on. How you doing, Jacob? So, what do I mean by that? See, whatever you are following or whatever you're disciplined in, so to speak, that's what we would call a limit. How you doing, Sister Dawn? Great to see you on the live. We still got to catch up. To so many people got to catch up with. But whatever you are limited by, we call it discipline. And the things, see, so whatever you're disciplined under will have limits on you, but also certain things you're disciplined under will cause you to lose certain limits. Sounds wild, sounds weird, sounds double-minded, sounds like cognitive dissonance. I would even, for those who say it sounds a little off, just hang with me a little bit. I promise you it'll make sense. But being limited in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but being limited by the wrong thing makes it a bad thing. Okay. If I'm disciplined in something, there's certain things I'm limited by. How you doing, Minister Nice? And great work once again on the word for this rise. And thank you so much for stepping in. Appreciate it. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Whatever I'm limited under is what I'm disciplined under, right? But so what do I mean by that? If you have character, it means there's certain things that you don't go outside of, right? The letter A is a character. No matter what it is, there's only a few ways I can write that letter A and it still be the letter A. The second that I try to take it and make it something different, it's no longer the letter A, right? It is limited, right? Aleph, right? And I'm going to go by Paleo Hebrew. Well, I guess Aleph, if you even want to go by modern Hebrew and Paleo Hebrew are two different things, right? And even people would argue Paleo Hebrew, which one you should use. Nevertheless, when we go by, and how you doing, Butterfly Effect? If I'm talking about the letter or the character Aleph has to be the same. The second that I change it, it is what? It is no longer Aleph. If I try to tell you that the letter C is a letter A, you would tell me that I was wrong. Now, if you're not disciplined, you might just say, oh yeah, I can see you making a C, this and that, or whatever. Aleph is Arabic, okay, cool, right? So even in all that, right? If I'm going to talk about the character, it cannot change, or else it's no longer what it's supposed to be. It means that it's no longer disciplined, or it's no longer limited, right? The thing that makes the letter A, the thing that makes the character Aleph, the thing that makes the letter Z, the thing that makes whatever. The number 1 is a character, the number 10 is a character, the number 100 is a character, etc. And the value that it holds, it has to be the same each time. When we change the value of it, what happens? We change its limits. We change how we're disciplined under it. Now we cannot use it for the answers that we need, right? And so first I want to talk about the fact that when it comes to limits, the limits in and of themselves, right, is not the problem. It is whose limits are you under, right? Whose limits are you under? Now that's a different conversation. See, I am limited as far as certain things I can do in different types of relationships. Why? Because I am married to the greatest woman who's ever walked the face of this planet, as far as I'm concerned. And so I am limited as far as interaction. Somebody might tell you, well, I try to love everybody the same. I cannot love everybody the way that I love my wife. I have a limit. I have discipline. The second I step outside that discipline and love somebody, and I'm not even talking about sexually, right? If I give somebody the same place as I do my wife, she has a right to call it out and say, wait a minute, that's not correct. Why are you disciplined? Why are you not disciplined when it comes to putting me in proper esteem or esteeming me highly or the way I should be esteemed, recognizing me, appreciating me, lifting me up in value? And thank you for the love, Keith. Appreciate it. And thank you for being on, Sister Bree. How you doing? Right. We have a lot of people that are trying to love people without limits. And that's when you have a problem with what we call boundaries. Right. You think that you cannot, when it comes to my wife, I have to have boundaries and she has to have boundaries. And there are certain boundaries I should never even attempt to cross. Right. It's the discipline. And in this FAQ series, why are we talking about this with frequently asked questions? Because a lot of the reasons when people say, well, why can't I get my business together? How should I go about making sure that I know what my purpose is? How should I make sure that I evaluate certain things? How can I judge things correctly? Should I judge anybody? All these things. It comes to a place to where we don't want to deal with limits, because if you're limited, really at first, we got to look at who you're limited under. And if we figure that out, then we got to figure out if you're a disciple. A disciple is one who chooses to be limited under a teacher, under a doctrine. Right? See, laws, once again, what? Laws don't give us rights. Laws do what? They protect rights. Right? So we're not looking for, like, if you're looking for civil rights, you have civil rights. The problem, what happens is people try to violate your rights. So then you have something called a law that comes in place to be able to protect your rights. How you doing, Nine? Right? We have a issue where we have all this stuff going on, and we need to make sure there's something to protect what? To protect your what? Your rights. It's called the law. Laws limit people from doing certain things. And if that person does do something, then we will limit what that person can do. And shalom to everybody, shalom, right? Um, even when it comes to your peace, you can't have peace unless you have limits, right? You cannot have peace unless it comes to your limits. How are you able to have peace? See, watch this. How many of us have limits as far as I have a specific place every day I can go to. I go to at a certain time. I spend a certain amount of time there. I do a specific thing there to be in tune, and nobody can bother me there. A lot of people trying to have peace, but don't have enough limits to get to peace. We think peace is just going to randomly show up. To be at peace, even in all things, right? And everything that you do to be at peace, fine. There's a mindset. There's a way that says that I must focus. I must construe this stuff. To get to even perfection and to live a limitless life as far as the time limit, right? Is to live in eternity, you have to actually follow certain principles. You have to be limited. If I could say it like this, I've said it like this before, but I don't know if, since we've never really spoken this particular type of mindset or this particular type of message, let me say it like this. If when people say, I want to be outside the box, imagine that you could actually be inside a box, but once you get in the box is eternal. You know how people talk about multiverses and stuff and other universes and this and that, and thanks for being part of the community, Naisha. I hope I said that name correctly. Imagine being in the box, and as soon as you get in the box, it's eternal. Imagine being in the box, and all of a sudden you have strength that you never had before. And I'm sorry, those on TikTok, we're going to lose you just for a second. We're going to lose you just for a second. I just want to make sure that I got this battery thing together. Hold on one second. All right. But think about that. You know, how many of us are talking about trying to always live outside the box? And really, when we say to live outside the box, what we're really saying is you know, I want to live outside of rules, regulations, etc. Right? I don't want people telling me what to do, this, that, whatever. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do. And that's not a feasible thing for a disciplined person. You know, it's not really feasible for somebody of discipline to do whatever they want to do. And I say that, may I say that again? It is not really feasible for a disciplined person to do whatever they want to do. Right? It's not really, once again, it's not really feasible for a disciplined person to do whatever they want to do, because a person of discipline needs to be disciplined. That means you have to have limits, right? Somebody who is, there are certain terms, there are certain words that we use that don't make sense. We just heard them and we like them. How you doing, Ransom? Thanks for being on, Brother Ransom. We like to say certain things because we've heard them, but they don't necessarily make sense. Limitless is a nice word and everything, but there's no such thing as something without limits. Now, eternity is the only thing that's without limits. It has no beginning, it has no end. Therefore, Yahweh is eternal, and eternity is Yahweh because he has no limits. He has no beginning, he has no end. You want to deal in those things, but you have to be limited to come into those things. Because even the Most High, Yahweh, he cannot lie. We don't look at that. We just go, oh, he cannot lie. He's incapable. No, he has to make the choice to never lie. The second that he lies, everything that's ever come out of his mouth, every creation that's ever been spoken into existence, the second that he lies out of his mouth, it is no longer what? It is no longer true. It is no longer eternal. It has to go away. Therefore, he has to be limited. He cannot lie because he has chosen to take on the limit of being a truth teller. See, truth tellers, people that seek truth, we are governed by limits. This is why when people say, how do you think about this? Or how do you think about that? Or how do you learn that? I had to learn limits. Historians have to learn limits. I'm a griot, so a jelly griot or a jelly, whichever one you want to call me, right? And that means that when it comes to my culture, when it comes to my people, I'm supposed to be able to show you things written down on paper, spoken, dances, art, music, you know, whatever the case might be to show you the story of our people. Not his story, but our story. How you doing, Sister Cynthia? Thanks for being on. So if that's the case, right, I have to be what? I have to be limited. I can't just tell you things. I can't tell you context without facts. I can't tell you facts without context. The second I do so, I've said that I can tell you stuff and not be limited by context. Like I'm trying to tell you something and not be limited by facts. See, a lot of people, this is why it's dangerous when we opine. Everybody's got an opinion. You know, what's that old saying? They say opinions are like holes, right? Everybody's got one. That's the problem, is that you're trying to find your destiny, and your destiny is going to come through limitation. No, you can't put any limits on me. Guess what? People who make the most money, they are limited. They have a regimen. They wake up at a certain time. They study how the market goes. Right? You see him on the ship. You go, man, that's awesome. They were on the ship. You see him at the beach. Man, that's awesome. They were on the beach. You see him in the car. You go, man, that car is really nice. You see him, being able to dote upon their spouse. Man, they're able to give him this and give him that. But you don't see that they're studying. See, when they're out there, and when you see some of these people out there on a boat, some of them are going to make sure that they have a laptop with them, and they're going to be getting business done. Right? When you pick up your phone and you begin to text and to call and to do all this stuff, right? You pick up the phone and begin to make these calls and do all these things. Guess what? Like, a lot of us are not doing these things because we have a destination in mind, a vision in mind, trying to figure out why we don't know our purpose. Purpose is what you do every day to get to the vision. How do you not know? How do you know what to do every day if you don't have blinders on? Now, here's the deal. Once you are limited as far as what you do to make sure you stay in your lane, now you are limitless on how far you can go. You see? So there is a such thing as getting in your calling, and now getting in your purpose, getting what you're created to do, getting in what you do that nobody else does, getting in what excites you like nobody else does. You can do that all day. I still really don't have my voice back, but I can do this all day if I needed to today. Right? Like, because why? Because I put limits and stuff. I've protected my voice. I've even in it not being all the way there, I have limits. I protected it. I eat certain things. I drink certain things. I made sure, even though I don't even have my water with me today, right? Bad, that I'm not limited correctly. I wasn't as disciplined as I needed to be, but I have everything in order and that I need, so that I can do this as long as I can. Why? Because I have limits. I have things around me. I make sure I have a limit as far as, hey, I could do this, I could do that, but you know what? Hey, I love all my family. I love all my friends, this and that or whatever. But guess what? I got to get ready today. I got a certain time that I'm limited. There's a certain time phone got to go. There's a certain time where this can't happen. There's a certain time where even if people are saying all manner of evil against me, hey, guess what? Keep on speaking it. While you're speaking it, I'm going to be in this. There's blinders on for certain things, because when I'm in this, and everything is where it's supposed to be limited, then within my calling, within this thing I'm supposed to do, now that's without limits. Right? And how you doing, Sister Carrie? Hello, H2O. How you doing, Brown 7 Bay? Thanks for being part of the community today. Without discipline, there's no success. And watch this, even the word success is what? It means you have successors. And how you doing, Sister Austria? How you doing, Ms. Mac? A lot of us are trying to be successful, but are not limiting ourselves to say, I can't stop doing what I'm doing until I have a successor. Without no successor, you are not a success. Right? How you doing, Sister Lori? Right? Like, my vision isn't about me. My vision is about things that my grandbaby's going to do. Right? Everybody loves, what is it, Proverbs 13, 22, something like that. I feel like I'm in the wrong place, but somewhere in Proverbs 13 where it says the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. Read the first part. The first part says that you got to be about your children's children. If you don't have a mindset of taking care of the grandbabies, then stop talking about the wealth of the wicked is laid up for you. You're not justified if you don't have a vision, if you're not disciplined. So my discipline doesn't stop with me. My vision doesn't stop with me. And a lot of people, that's all you got, is your vision that stops with you. That's why that's why a lot of us have a life that's we struggle to make it, but you make it from day to day. You make it from paycheck to paycheck. You make it from day to day. That's all you do, day to day, month to month, right? Because all you're thinking about is, hey, how can I survive? But the second that your vision is bigger than that is the second that now you start living bigger than that. A lot of people are only focused on, what can I do right now? Right? What can I do right now? Right? That's why people cancel people. Because people don't even think, instead of canceling somebody that I disagree with, is there a way that I can hear what they say, actually be able to change the perception, or at least find a way to have somebody who's over in that thought process be able to come into something greater that expands their mind. We don't even care about that, because we just say, we'll cancel you right now. Thank you, everybody who's coming on TikTok, YouTube. We appreciate your presence. I'm having an issue with my other device right now, so that's why we haven't been on the podcast. Hopefully, we'll have that straightened out once we finish traveling. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have that straightened out. But a lot of us are not like, the reason why people don't give, and not just to. I'm not worried about you giving to me. I'm talking about people don't give. People don't give to organizations. People say that they love people, but they don't give food. They don't give effort. They don't give clothes. They don't give energy. They got all this extra stuff. People got so many shoes they can't even put them in the closet. People got multiple couches and don't even know what to do with them and stuff. People have multiple cars just sitting down, but won't give it to anybody else. You know why? Because people are so into the temporary. They can't even think, if I were to give this to somebody and my neighbor was doing better, then guess what it would do? It would cause me to be greater. It would cause the community to be greater. But because we don't even have limits on what we need, people are hoarding stuff. That's what a hoarder is. How you doing, Sister Stella? People are hoarding things, right? People are out here hoarding. You got 25 pairs of shoes. You got 150 pairs of shoes, some people. What do you need 150 pairs of shoes for? But you have no limits. You think that the more you have, the better. And then you don't even think, if I'm going to have more, then at least I'm going to make sure I develop more. Bill Gates, what is it? Every time I listen to it, it's more and more, right? And something around, is it true? He has something like 300,000 acres or something like that. He has 300,000 acres, and yet he's talking about we have a food shortage. How do you have a food shortage and you got 300,000 acres? How are you telling people in Africa that they shouldn't go ahead and you'll go over there to tell them to make sure that they start killing their babies, right? But you won't make sure that they have food. You said you loan your secondary vehicle to family members to use. Glad you can help. Yeah, and have limits. And by the way, I'm not saying don't have boundaries, right? I'm saying we should have limits. So if somebody's going to use, like, people don't like this. People just go, oh yeah, you know what? I have this. You can go ahead and use it. Yeah, cool, no problem, right? But if they're going to use your vehicle, they better make sure it come back. And they shouldn't mind putting some gas in it, right? And they shouldn't mind making sure that if every once in a while, if they use it 10 times in a year or something, maybe one of the 10 times they could actually make sure it's clean. Like, there should be limits on this. You said family, storm this weekend, tree fell through the shed. Oh, wow. Well, hopefully those things will be there and be better. I'm praying for you. I know you were trying to get ready to get that out, that situation where it wouldn't even happen had you had the chance. So, but we praise you out, at least the family's safe, and we're thankful. But we want to have limits. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? Shalom to you. We want to have limits, right? We want to have limits on this, right? When I limit watch this. I can't limit. See, this is when character and stuff comes in, right? There are certain things I can limit, certain things I can't. But what I'm disciplined under, I can make limits in, right? Check peep game. People can say whatever they want about me, right? I can't stop them. But I don't have to say what they say about me. Y'all catch that? Like, people can say whatever they want about me. They have every right to, right? At the same time, I don't have to say the same thing they say. See, you can be a limit, right? You can limit it. Some people are going through the hell and the frustration and the doubt and everything because they're saying the same thing that other people are saying. They're entertaining it. Why are we entertaining what these people are saying about you? Like, they're going to live your life anyways. Because one thing I found out is a lot of these people who talk trash about you, they wouldn't help you anyways. So if you ain't going to help me, you might as well just say it and say over there. Well, I'm your friend. I'm just saying, well, you can be my friend and not come in my house until you can stop just saying, because I got limits to this. I don't have to entertain foolishness. Right? We're your affirmations. Nobody else is saying affirmations about you. Where are your affirmations? Why don't you start off in the day talking about how thankful you are to the Most High, how grateful you are, how you're fearfully and wonderfully made, how much great perspective you have, how you're a great parent, how you help your parent, all those different things. I mean, help your parent. Yeah, help your parents, help your community, help whatever, right? Like, why is that not part of your stuff, right? Like, we should have this. And it should be watch this, because they're going to talk trash about you every day. So guess what? You should make sure you speak positive about yourself every day. Tests are going to come and trials are going to come every day. So guess what? You need to be spiritually in the gym, mentally in the gym, emotionally in the gym, physically in the gym every day. Every day. Right? It's a constant process. Because why? Because I'm limited. I've limited myself to where every day I can't do anything other than make sure that I lift up the Most High. I can't do anything other than lift up my wife. I can't do anything other than lift up Solomon. I can't do anything other than those things. I gotta lift them up. I'm limited to it. I'm disciplined under it. Did you hear what I'm saying? I'm not disciplined by it. I'm disciplined under it. I understand it. See, a lot of people, even so undisciplined, we've got this new thing now where it's like I overstand, which means basically I stand over everything. We think it means you comprehend, but it's not comprehension. If you comprehend something, you comprehend it. But people are like, oh, don't understand. That means you're going underneath something. Yeah, sometimes there's certain principles that you should stand under. Certain principles, they supersede racism, they supersede chauvinism, they supersede classism, they supersede how you feel. On days that I don't like myself, I still have to love my wife. And watch this, on days that I don't like myself, I have to find a way to love myself anyways. I'm mad because I ain't made it to a certain moment in time. It doesn't mean I'm not going to say, you know what, I still need to make sure I eat healthy today. It doesn't mean I'm not going to speak to myself and say, hey, even though I'm not doing exactly what I want to do, it doesn't mean that I can't speak positive to me, because nobody can speak positive like I can about me, unless you're the Most High. My wife does an amazing work when she speaks health and life and wealth and stuff over my life, and I appreciate her so much. But guess what? Like, she, in her doing her greatest work, like, I know what goes on inside me, and I know the demons and the spirits and all those things that we deal with. And so guess what? Like, it's got to be done. I'm limited. In order to become limitless towards the vision and in my purpose and in my value of myself, I've got to be limited. See, the reason why the diamond, even though diamonds are just locked up, so that's why, but let's just go off of what they try to tell you, right? The reason why the diamond is supposed to be as valued as it is because they limited how many of them you have access to. There are vaults all over the world that people have stolen diamonds from different places and have them on lockdown. Right, but the only reason you pay as much as you pay for a diamond is because you know it's limited. That's it. The reason why you pay what you pay for land is what? Because it's limited. And for whatever reason, some of us see more value in the diamond than we do in ourselves. You know that you're more precious, like sisters. Come on, y'all know these verses. You're more precious than rubies. Right? You're more precious. But some will make sure that they wear the ruby, but will not make sure that they wear themselves. They'll make sure that they sell a product, but they won't make sure they sell themselves. You know, we will wear other things. How you doing, Brother TJ? We will wear other things, other people, other culture, etc., but we will not wear ourselves. We will not support ourselves. We will not produce ourselves. We will not promote ourselves. It's a dangerous place to be in when your children don't think that you will defend yourself. It's a dangerous place to be in when your children don't think that you will love yourself. Because either one or two things will happen with that, right? Well, one of three things. Hopefully the first thing, thank you, Sister Miko, appreciate it. Hopefully the first thing that'll happen is that they'll try to help you. Second thing that might happen as a possibility as well is they might abuse that, knowing that you won't do anything for yourself, so they'll run roughshod over you. Or, hey, they might take your example and they might just not love and support themselves. It's important for us, but you have limits, right? People say, I can do all things through Christ. What's the rest of that verse say? People just stop there. I can do all things through Christ. You can do anything. Can you? Are you supposed to? See, people try to be carbon copies over one another. Are you supposed to be a carbon copy? Are you supposed to be exactly like everybody else? Are you? See, you should look for the differences in you and celebrate those things and be limited by those. See, that's when you limit yourself to yourself. It's hard to limit yourself to yourself if you're not looking at yourself. Every day it's a grind. Every day. Every day it's a grind. Every day it's a grind to love you. I wish I could tell you that it gets easier, but the more stuff that you have, that's the more stuff you got to love. Love is action. You got to put action to it. You know, you go to your job and they say, okay, this is what you're going to be doing today. And you're going to be over in this area in the work warehouse. And you're going to be, doing fries for this moment. And then I promise I'll put you at the register or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Everybody's always got a plan. You're going to be, this on this project, you're going to be the project manager and here and this, whatever it is. Everybody's always got what? They've got limits that somebody fits inside of, right? In your experience, in your everyday, even in your everyday, what is the limit? But once again, it's hard to put limits up for your purpose. Purpose is what we're doing every day, what we're supposed to do every day. If I don't know vision, where I'm supposed to head, and vision is what limits you. See, if you're somebody who's supposed to speak, that's why if y'all notice, I've told you, my voice kind of comes in and out now, but I had completely lost my voice even before I got sick as far as my singing voice, because I had to make a decision. I have to do certain things to make my speaking voice work a level that I have to use it all day. And so I had to sacrifice the singing. And I wasn't a singer per se, but I could carry a tune, right? I could do some basic stuff. I could put some stuff out, but now I had to make a decision. Like, so if I'm going to be involved in music, I'm not going to be doing as much singing, right? Because I had to figure out like which one was there. Was my purpose more centered around singing, or was it more centered? Now, some people, they're centered around doing both, but that's not mine. My purpose, my vision is I'm supposed to be getting stuff done that's going to help us as a community by changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. So that means that my purpose every day is to make sure that I'm speaking more so than I'm singing. So guess what? The singing voice, as much as I love to sing, singing voices kind of had to take a back seat. You said, is it limitation or border of protection? I would say a border is a limit, right? Like, think about a city limit. I was actually going to talk about this anyway, so I'm glad you kind of, asked that question. Like, think about a city limit. What does a city limit say? If I'm in Chicago and there's city limits, what are they saying? They're saying you get into a place where you ain't gonna be in Chicago no more, right? If they say this is the D, if they say these are city limits to Detroit, what they're saying is you go in a certain place, you ain't gonna be in Detroit. You might be in Troy, but you ain't in Detroit. They might seem like they're the same, but they ain't the same, right? Like we have to recognize these things that are there. Okay, Ms. Mack, thank you for bringing that to your attention. So, try to see if maybe somebody can reach out. But these are the things we have to look at and consider. Um, is there city limits? Are there country limits? Is there maritime limits? Right? There's limits to everything. So even like we said, even in your relationships, what are your boundaries? A lot of people don't have boundaries. Boundaries are limits. Boundaries doesn't mean that I can't be loving. Like, it doesn't mean that I have to be begrudging. And if you even come close to the limit, this and that or whatever, I try to take care of whatever we can. But there's certain things that I've got to be disciplined in. Whatever I'm disciplined under is what I'm limited by. Right? Somebody who's going to be a great speaker probably shouldn't be drinking alcohol and smoking all day. They can, but it's probably going to limit. But because they don't have a limit, it probably means that there'll actually be a worse limit that comes later on, which means they'll just be silenced. Right? Somebody who wants to run a marathon, you probably should work out every day and be limited within working out every day, which means that because I have this limit, because I got this boundary, it says that I've got right. Like, I think people look at limits as only what we block out, but limits are things that cause us once again to get in our groove, to get in our goal, to get into the things that are limitless, that are eternal. Miles Monroe, for example, Dr. Miles Monroe, he once spoke and said that he and how you doing, Sister Shantae? He once spoke and said that he realized he was going to be preaching. And he was going to be a pastor one day, something along the lines of a pastor. So he said, and since he had to do that, that meant that he never drank alcohol, and he said he never smoked. He never did any drugs because he knew ultimately what he was supposed to do. So he had never done it because in his teenage years, he had already made a decision. This is what I'm going to do. And he had already studied and seen in his own personal life with his own family. If you do some of these things, you probably won't be able to speak that long. How you doing, Prince? Thanks for being on with us. How you doing, Knight? Thanks for being on, Dr. Knight. Right? Like these things come with limits. So he limited himself. And we look at that as a bad term. But once again, limited just says, hey, who I'm disciplined under. But now that I'm limited under that, what does that mean? I can be in something limitless. In my lane, there's very little limits, right? In my lane, when it comes to teaching, there's not a lot of limits. I'm not saying I know everything. What I'm saying is that I could do this all day. Even with my voice not really being all the way back, I could do this all day, all night. I could do this in person. I could do this online. I could do this at the store. I could do this one-on-one. I can do this over the phone. I could do this on Zoom. I could do this on TikTok. I can do this on YouTube. I can do this on the podcast. I can do it on Twitter. I can do it wherever, however you want this to happen, right? You want life coaching, marital coaching, one-on-one sessions, whatever. I can do this teaching, this gift that I'm developing every day that I'm limited to, right? Or I'm sorry, that I've decided to limit myself in other things, right? I've limited myself in other things and put up borders. Why? So I can be limitless in this lane. In this lane, when they say go, right? When that gun shoots off, on your mark, get set, go, all that stuff, on your marks, get set, go, I'm out, right? I've become disciplined. And because I'm disciplined, there's limits that come with discipline. I can't be disciplined by something if I choose to not have limits. I was talking to my spiritual father on Father's Day, and I made it a point to tell him that how much I appreciated him and loved him and honored him, and how he really was there for me at probably the toughest time in my life. You know, and I was telling him that I'm still limited to being, under certain things he taught me, and I limit myself to making sure certain things he taught me because those things he showed me and taught me are things that helped me well. He was the one that taught me that every time that you make money, give it to your wife. He was the one that taught me that. Some people are oh, well, you can't do this, and I got to have a separate account, this and that. Like, to each their own. Maybe you guys can't. But look, man, I can't. I had to limit myself and say, hey, man, my wife is better than finances. She knows what I want to do. She's shown her heart. She shows she's going to show love, this and that, or whatever. Let me make sure that I give her what's there. I'm limited. I limit my spending habit. I make the money, so what? I'm still limited in what I can spend because she's ultimately the one who's been called out of the two of us to be greater in that area. She's ultimately the one that's been called to be greater in that area. So I'm limited. I limit myself in that. Right? I get to still say, hey, I'd like to be able to get this. I'd like to be able to do this. I'd like to be able to go here. I'd like to be able to get a shirt or two, something like that. Sure. I'd like to be able to get some shea butter. I'd like to be able to do this, blah, blah, whatever. But I'm limited. And because I'm limited, it means that in my lane, I'm limitless. Like, if we could really get that, a lot of our businesses, a lot of our plans and stuff, may I say this? I still have to get better in a lot of stuff, right? But, a lot of the stuff that we've done is not based off of me having to know a lot of things, me having to be intimate. I've become better. I've gotten more information, right? I'm becoming greater in the information that I have to be able to use certain things, certain technologies, etc. But for real, when we started, all I did was I just said, you know what? I'm limiting myself. I got to put out this much content. I got to make sure I do this many hours. I got to make sure I pursue this much. I got to make sure that I'm ready to speak concerning just being in the kingdom and being Afrocentric, all that stuff. How you doing, Dene? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Shadallah? And I made a decision, right, that I'm going to limit myself to being in this lane. And all I did was speak. And I was limitless in it. See, watch this. I was limitless in it, right, in the lane, even when nobody was on. 0 people coming on live, still was on for an hour plus. Nobody on Facebook friends, family, people who said that they were church members and all this stuff like that. Nobody showing up to stuff I was doing. Going out in the street to make sure that I was giving people clothes and all that stuff. Nobody coming up with us and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, right? But when people said, hey, see, now this is when who are you limited under comes into position, right? Who are you limited under now comes into play. Because now this is what happens. Am I limited? Who am I disciplined under? Other people would try to put limits on it. See, you ain't gonna make it. You need to go ahead and just get a real job like everybody else. Nobody's really listening to you. Why do you think you got something to say? Why don't you dress like everybody else? Why don't you just be obedient? Maybe it's for you to not do this. Have people coming out. You're not a pastor. You're just an evangelist. Had somebody that was under, right? Had much love for this person at the time. Somebody that was under in the middle of a service, just straight up like, oh no, you're just an evangelist. That's all you are, right? In other words, stop trying to be a head of the pastor, right? This is a Christian church. Stop trying to be a pastor. You're given a word and you just need to go ahead and go places, but you're not supposed to really be over an environment or anything like that, right? This was a person of authority, an overseer, right? That was what was said. I had to make a decision, right? Am I going to stay in this lane and be limited, right, by what the Most High says? Or am I going to stay in her lane and be limited by what she said? And not going to talk about her or who she was specific or anything like that. But long story short, I'm doing what I'm doing now. And she's well, let me not do that. Long story short, I'm doing what I'm doing now. Right? And so like and I pray for that person and their church family and all that stuff. And there's some things and directions and stuff that is taken and stuff. And I keep them in prayer all the time, right? But people are ready to limit you. People like I'll tell you this. Once again, here's another thing. I talked about this today, but I'll go a little further. A lot of people, when they met me, especially in church situations, they met me on the keyboard, right? They met me on the piano. They met me on a drum set. They met me putting together a group. They met me, through hearing about something I had put together musically, and then they found that I was the one that wrote it. So everywhere I go, even though my ultimate gift, right, the number one thing that pushes me past anything is going to be teaching, the first thing everybody else went for was, hey, can you make sure you play? Can you make sure you play? And all these people would know I could preach. We'd have great in-depth conversations, but they would never ask me to preach. They would only ask me to play. Why? Because in their mind, what they first met me as is the only thing I could be. And so they weren't trying to see me develop. They didn't think that I do. And I was telling people the whole time, like a lot of my boys who were supposed to be the first people to come down this road and do stuff like that. And different groups we were supposed to have ready already, and things that we as men, like we had stuff where men were meeting together in person and stuff, and they were supposed to come. But I kept saying, hey, we're going to be doing this. We're going to be traveling. We're going to be putting together land and all these things. And people didn't believe or whatever. People were just like, oh, that's too big, right? Because what happened is I started telling those brothers a long time ago, hey, if you're going to be part of this, you're going to have to start limiting some things. Like, you're going to have to be held accountable for your time. You're going to have to actually be on time. You're going to have to be faithful in your relationships. You're going to have to make sure that you produce in yourself. You're going to have to be held accountable, right? They didn't want to be disciplined. And they went and they became limited under other things. And now, because they are limited in other things, they're not able to move, not just with us. They're not able to move in certain things in their life. And then they're surprised, or, oh, man, it's good to see. I don't get to see you that much, man. You always busy and everything. And my response is usually something along the lines of, yeah, Yah's great. You should have been here with me. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I should. I don't know. But I say it to him because I'm trying to get him to see, like, be limited. What's that saying? Be willing to do what you don't want to do now so you can do what you want to do later. That means you got to cut things off. But here's the deal. People that are really limited, even when they get more, they still limit themselves. They're still disciplined. A lot of y'all, watch this. I'm not saying everybody, but guess what? A lot of the NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB owners, sports owners, team owners, MLS, things like that, right? You got to comprehend that they're willing to do not what they want to do now so they can do what they want to do later. Like now, they're billionaires, still disciplined, right? Sylvester Stallone feel like he's 80 years old. What, he's 72, 73, 75, somewhere in there. Still come out on a movie and look better than most of us, if not all of us, right? Discipline. You know him for having a rocky body. You know him for having a Rambo body. So guess what? At 70 something, you still know him for having a Rambo body. You said it's one cookie now or five later. Yeah, like we're not willing to do those things. Like, where is your limit, brothers, sisters, brethren, diaspora, yastel, etc.? Where is your limit? You said they can't see their own visions. How can they see yours? Yeah, and we have a lot of people, right? They don't even have enough mindset to do what Matthew chapter 7 says. You got a 2x4 hanging out of your eye, but you talking about the splinter that's in mine, right? Now I ain't mad at it, but but see, it's lack of discipline. Somebody that's disciplined doesn't come to talk to you about a splinter in your eye if they're not even dealing with theirs. It's amazing how many people will be like, man, you know what? You need to work on this, and you need to preach this, and you need to do this or whatever. And that brother or sister, they're not able to even speak, have not even developed, making sure that they got something. Now, I'm not saying I won't listen to you. I should listen to you. But hear what I'm saying is you won't even be disciplined in making sure that you reach out or whatever your gift is. Like, for example, if somebody's a great chef and they're disciplined and they making their lifestyle off of the being chef thing or whatever, and they handling their business and feeding the community and doing a lot of stuff like that, the chef, if they say, hey, I'm gonna tell you when it comes to preaching, I would do this and that or whatever, I'll listen to them before the preacher that doesn't even study to show themselves approved. You know why? Because the chef apparently studies and is disciplined. And I can learn more from the discipline than I can from the words of somebody who's not. Right? I've got to stay in a limitless lane, but that means I got to limit everything else. How you doing, Souls? Thanks for being on. You said, have you seen the test for toddlers where you put a treat in front of them and leave, telling them? I've seen a couple of those videos, yeah. Right? And by the way, the discipline is on different levels, even talking about that. So there's some things that I don't expect a toddler to be limited, in. But by the way, you know why a toddler will probably be more limited than another one if you do that whole candy thing? If you haven't introduced candy to a toddler, the toddler might not even care. Some of us are so busy saying don't do who you're limited under. They're always saying don't do. But if you tell the toddler, hey, don't eat this candy, what if they never even knew what candy was yet? What if you've never introduced it to them? And the first time they get to introduce it, it's even edible, as you say, hey, I'm leaving this room, don't eat it. Like, if they've never had candy before, why would they even worry about it? Right? If they've never had candy before, why would they even worry about it? Yeah, we're at the beach right now. So like, even in that, you got to comprehend that sometimes you're actually messing up the limits that people have because you're introducing them to them, telling them all the time all the things they cannot do. You cannot. What if it's something that's not even part of their mindset yet? I'm not saying don't introduce certain things to your babies, but be careful. There's certain things that's not even for people right now. I mean, if you want souls, there's a way. All you got to do is just go to our TikTok channel, or if you're on YouTube, you can look in the description box for more information. If you go on TikTok, you go to the TikTok channel, you click on where it says website, click on that. You'll see our link tree pop up, and you can go ahead and try and get in contact with us. But these are things that, like, we don't want to talk about, right? Like, we don't, and for whatever reason, we think that limitless is everything. Take the limits off of everything. No, you don't take the limits off of everything. That's not how law works. How you gonna deal with natural law and you talking about, well, I'm gonna just grow a seed in my hand? You can't grow a seed in your hand. There's limits to this. Just like people say there's levels to this, there's limits to this. Just because we don't want to hear the limits doesn't mean that they don't exist. If I truly love you, should I tell you limits or not? Thank you, Minister Sony. If I truly love you, would I tell you limits? If I truly love you, watch this. If I truly love you, watch this. If I truly love you, watch this. If I truly love you, hear what I'm about to say, right? If I truly love you, would I not make sure Did I have limits? Because if I don't have limits, then you'll get mad at me and get frustrated with me when I don't have limits. If I can't be trusted, you'll get mad at me. So I limit myself from things such as lies. I used to be a great liar. No shame in my game. Used to be the best of the best. That's one of the reasons why when people say all this stuff or whatever, yeah, the pot calling the kettle black. Like, I'm the pot. I used to be extremely great at lying. I'm extremely great at being able to take words, use etymology, mess with somebody's mind if I want, right? So I have to be limited in not doing so. But when I had no limits, oh yeah, I was really good at being able to tell somebody something and get you to be able to believe whatever I want. Now I stopped trying to get you to believe whatever I want. I just put out contextual facts and you can choose. I had to limit myself. Amen. Yah gives chet for a reason. That's a great character to use. Aman. Right? He gives that chet, that wall, that hedge of protection, that boundary. He gives it to us for a reason. And a lot of times people without limits are the worst people to be around. Amen. What value, what constitution, or what good is it for a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Is there any value in that? There's limits. Matter of fact, let's go to that scripture real quick. Excuse me. I don't know if that was the birds flying by or what. As soon as they flew by, I was feeling like sneezing ever since. Praise Yah. Came. Okay, we're gonna look at the whole. I want to go a little bit before it because we usually just quote that scripture by itself, right? But we're gonna go to Mark chapter 8. We're gonna, it's verse 36 is the verse, but I'm trying to read a little bit to see where we're gonna start. But if you want to go there, if you got your Bible with you, we're gonna go to Mark chapter 8, verse 36 will be the focal verse. But I want to go and look around a little more, as we usually do, right? And let's go ahead and look at this correctly. How you doing, divine mother? So let's look at this. So we all know verse 36, right? For what shall it profit a man or woman, by the way, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Right? We've all heard that before, right? In some way, shape, or form. Right? But now let's look at a little before that. Let's go back to verse 34 and let's read all the way through verse 38. It says, and when he had called the people unto him, with his disciples also, he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself. So let him do what? Let him limit himself, even from himself. Let him deny himself. Limits. If you're coming after me, if you're following Yahshua, what are you supposed to do? Deny yourself. Wow. Isn't it interesting that to lift oneself up, sometimes you got to deny yourself, right? But he said, because once again, if we would lift up Yahshua, it says what in scripture? He will draw all men. All right. So, and when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and do what? And take up his cross. We talked about that extensively not too long ago. Take up his cross and follow me, right? Deny yourself, be a living sacrifice, be nailed to the cross. Because if he had the cross, you got to have it. So he's compelling you. He was compelled to carry the cross until he couldn't anymore. And then somebody who was there had to even carry it with him, right? The African, right? Had to carry it with him, right? So then you had those two carrying it together. He says, therefore, you need to carry your cross. If somebody else had to carry this cross with me, you need to carry a cross too, if you're coming up, right? Deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow him. Verse 35, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it. For whosoever shall save his life shall what? Shall lose it. This is a living sacrifice. Living sacrifice seems to be one of the worst things to ever say because it seems to be complete cognitive dissonance. How can you be all the way alive and all the way dead? But you got to be all the way alive in the pneuma, the pneumatical thought, the stoic thought, the marriage, the spirit, the body, and the soul together, right? And you have to be salvaging yourself, salvation, a salvaging process. And in order to do that, you have to start killing off things that people told you about yourself that never had anything to do with you. People that told you that your body build wasn't perfect. People that told you that your work ethic wasn't their work ethic, therefore it's not good enough. People that told you that you should be a victor and not a victim, even though victors are terrible people that have triumphs that mean that they parade people around to kill in front of other people after they committed genocide. All these things. You got to figure out a way to get past the miseducation of the American Negro, right? Like all these different things. You have to deny yourself. See, because really what you think yourself is not even yourself. Nevertheless, verse 35, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it. But means cancel that out. Whosoever shall lose his life for my sake. See, oh, thank you, Shalonda. That's pretty. Thank you very much. That's actually apropos, right? That's very pretty, right? So whosoever shall lose his life. What does it say? It says, for my sake. Put a pause right there. Put a pause right there, somebody. Put a pause right there. Whoever's willing to lose their life for what? For his sake. That means for his product. That means for his advertisement. That means for his authority. If you're willing to be stand underneath his authority for his sake and lose what you think is your life, right? It says, and in your version, it'll say gospel there, but really that word gospel actually means something that a gift that's bestowed. So, right, it says the same shall have it. In other words, if I say it with proper or a better translation, it would say something along the lines of, for any of us who will save their life, we're going to lose it. But cancel that out. Any of us that shall lose our lives for the sake and the authority of the Most High, right? There's a gift that's your real life that he's going to bestow upon you. And therefore that eternal life shall be saved. That's the standard. Therefore, verse 36 now says, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own psychology, psyche, or soul? The word psyche, psyche is soul. So what would it profit a man to have this fake life that's under somebody else's psychology? Psychology is the study of your soul. So somebody has studied your soul and told you you're supposed to be different than what you're actually supposed to be so you can be controlled. And what does it profit you if you'll basically gain the whole world trying to be a controller, to be able to serve and pay taxes and send all your stuff and your money and your ilk and your circumstances and your grades that you got to get in school and all that, to give it to somebody else who's all they're trying to do is control you? What does it profit you to do all that and then at the end lose who you were supposed to be the whole time? That's the context, y'all. Still, that is the context. That is the context. See why we need contextual facts. See why we need to get back to culture. See why we need to stand on culture the way we should. People are out here talking about all this nonsense. It's nonsensical. Doesn't even make sense. What does it profit you to never be taught about who you really were the whole time? Why is it that you never knew Aleph Bet, even though Aleph Bet is the only reason why there's an alphabet? Why is it that you never knew Bada Shuts, even though Bada Shuts is the only reason why there's an in beginning? Why is it that you never knew that you should know about Rakia or Rakwa, even if you and you nobody ever told you that you should know about that, but you know about a God named Firmament, and you worship him, and he came out of his mama who he had sexual relations with, and that's how you're supposed to be here, right? Why is it that nobody ever told you that Christopher Columbus had to come over here speaking your language, but then told you that you weren't even, didn't even tell you were native, didn't tell you were West African, didn't tell you that you were Yashtel? Why is it? Why is it that you're trying to gain the whole world through a system that won't even tell you who you are, and you never once thought to yourself, what is my psyche? What is my culture? What do we think? So let me start there again. Verse 36, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world, the whole system? That's what that word world is. Gain the whole system and lose his own soul. Here's another question that we don't add on. Verse 37, right after that. Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? What's valuable enough that you should exchange your psychology for it? You should exchange the very thing that takes the things in the pneumatical, the spiritual, and puts it into the flesh, the physical. What's worth that? What's worth your culture to you? Well, if I don't do this, I mean, I might end up on the street. You know what? I've been on the street and I've been off the street wearing the 6-piece suit, making making six figures and all that stuff. I meant to say 3-piece, but yeah, I've been on the street though. I've done the 3-piece suit and done all that, and then made the 6 figures and had the lifestyle and had the vehicles and did all that stuff or whatever. And I'm telling you, making a lot less now. Y'all see, like I live better now than I lived back then, right? When I decided that I wanted to be his, right? I've been homeless on the street, taking on my culture. And being homeless on the street with my culture, I had more sense of pride than I ever did, making sure that I was making 6 figures. Had I had the values of culture that I did when I was making 6 figures, we would have made 7, 8 figures by now, easy, right? I wish I'd had the values with it, but I'm glad that at least I got the values. Now that I've got the values, my purpose has been like when Rick what's his name, Rick Warren or whatever, when he wrote that book, Purpose is Driven Life or whatever, like he never, like, vision is established before purpose. And he never told you about that. In your culture, in your Bible, vision is more important than purpose. You don't know what the purpose of something is if you don't know the vision. And that's why you have division, because we don't know where to go. And how you doing, how you doing, fireman? Right? What is worth, what is valuable enough to exchange your soul for, to exchange the way you think? That's what it's talking about. Soul is your psychology, the seat of your passions, the way you breathe, even. You know that chi is just the way you breathe. Did you know that? All these other people who don't even comprehend their own culture will watch these movies and do all this stuff or whatever. If you go to a Buddhist monk, and you talk to them about chi, they'll be like, man, that's pretty hard. But you can learn, but it's pretty hard to get. And they're just talking about breathing. I know there's gonna be people that are gonna be more esoteric with it. You go to a Buddhist monk in the temples right now, right? The ones that we think are Shaolin monks and stuff, I promise you, they're just gonna tell you how to breathe. You want to learn how to control chi, they're gonna say this is how you breathe. It's their soul. Even part of the definition of soul is the very way you breathe. People don't know that. So you should have breathing exercise. That's why sometimes when you get angry, what do? They say, oh, take a minute, just breathe. Right? What are you doing? You're setting yourself up so that the spirit and the physical can be able to stop being so discombobulated, so much stuff going on. Let me get my soul together. That's what they're talking about. Like, we've made this, once again, we've taken the things that should be practical, that we've made them so mystical, they're no longer so practical. We've taken the spiritual and made it so mystical, it's no longer practical. They're just saying, get your soul together real quick. You feel better, right? Breathe in, count to 10, breathe out, count to 10. You feel better. What they're saying is that now we can actually have conversation. Right? We could actually talk. We could actually have some conversation. Just breathe in real quick. Just, you ever had some time where you're so angry you don't even know you're breathing, and somebody says, yo, breathe, you about to pop. You ever had somebody say something along those lines? Because sometimes you'll be so angry and so much stuff is going on and so many things are happening spiritually and now physically, emotionally, things are going on and all this stuff, you don't know what to do, right? Somebody's saying breathe. They're saying set your soul. Get your soul. Your soul's about to mess up. That's what they're really saying. Like, yo, if you don't breathe right now, something's about to happen. So what shall a man give in exchange for his own soul? Right, last verse 38. Whosoever therefore, so because of all that stuff we just said, whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me, shall be ashamed of Yahshua and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation. So anybody that's ashamed, to make sure that they are using these teachings and getting their soul together and making sure that they speak for Yahshua and they won't understand his word and they won't make sure that they live by the laws and all this, right? He said, anyone who is ashamed, because it's Yahshua who said to follow his law, Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. So anybody who is ashamed to do it, according to this in verse 38, it says, to do it in what? In this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man, that's Yahshua, be what? Ashamed. When he cometh in the glory, that's the weight, the heaviness, the seriousness, the glory of his Father with the holy angels. When he comes back, he said, if you are not willing to do what? To be limited It's for me. It's not about you. Right? I can do all things through Christ, boo boo. Through Christ. Stay focused. Stay centered. Stay limited. No, you just trying to put limits on me. Yeah, certain things we need to limit. Like certain things you need to get limited. Yeah. Man, my own mama don't talk to me like that. You know what? I'm sorry. Maybe she should have. Because you need to have some limits on you. How dare you? How dare you? I don't even let my spouse talk to me like that. That might be part of the problem. Your tongue's not limited. Your tongue's unlimited. That might be part of the problem. We need to get some limits in your life. There are certain things that I shall not do. I shall not do. This phone supposedly is supposed to be waterproof. I still ain't taking it in the water. Well, now I can't because it's a little crack. It had an accident the other day, so around the camera area is messed up. But there's certain things I'm limited to, right? There's certain things, you know, I'm limitless. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Can you fly a plane? Well, I can. I can if I went through training. Yeah. So there's limits. You got to learn. You got to do something. How you doing, Orgo? Like you got to be willing to be in a position to learn and to have limits. How you doing, Minister Select Morel? Like you got to be limited. Everybody wants to be unlimited and then wants to figure out why you got unlimited problems. Oh, hallelujah. That was a word right there for somebody. Like that's a word for somebody right there. Like, yo, like you want to be unlimited and trying to figure out why you got unlimited problems. See, I never teach that anybody who comes into this kingdom isn't going to have problems, but your problems should be limited. When people say my problem, oh, I've got more problems. I didn't say that you're going to have more problems, but they'll be limited. But guess what? See, here's something they don't want to tell you is that before you had unlimited problems. Oh no, when I was out there, everybody was cool with me. We drank and did this or whatever. Okay, that means that while everybody was cool with you, you had problems. I ain't had no problems. What you mean I had problems? I mean, if you was drinking the way you say you was drinking, then that means that your liver was falling apart. If you was drinking the way you was drinking, you did a lot of stuff that you can't even remember. If you was drinking the way you was drinking and stuff like that you wake up next to anybody and you didn't even know how you got there. If you was drinking the way you was drinking, then your friends weren't around or whatever for a second, that somebody maybe slipped something in your drink. See, like just because you didn't see it didn't mean that you weren't dealing with problems. You want to live unlimited and be willing to have unlimited problems. I didn't say you won't have any problems being in the kingdom, but they limited. And if you don't believe me, I promise you, like here's the easy way for you to see how limited my problems be. I'm not saying I don't have any, but I want to show you, right? Something. I'm limited because I don't even have time. Like, I wish I had time to really like be around as many people as people think that I really am around. Like I'm around quite a few, but like I don't have time to be around people that could possibly be doing wrong things because all I got time for is SOC. How you doing, Frankie? Thanks for being here. I don't have time for it. I don't have time to be able to be so drunk because like I can't drink first thing in the rising and be an alcoholic first thing in the rising. I got to study. I don't have time to be thinking about a whole bunch of negative things on an early rising session on Monday or the prayer service on Thursday. Even if I'm not even on the prayer service, like I still don't even have time because I got to make sure. Hey, let me make sure that I text the people that are on to let them know why I'm not going to be on. So I still have to be faithful. Even if I'm not on it, I still don't even have time to be able to do it because I'm too committed. I'm too committed to this thing. And shalom, peace be upon everybody who's coming on today. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, right? You know, we have to get to a place to where we're willing to have limits. A lot of us are not willing to have limits. Right? This goes into the whole conversation. See, FAQ is a series, right? Frequently asked questions. This is why people will fight with you about Jesus, because Jesus is unlimited. Yahshua is limited. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You can sprinkle Jesus on anything, and it works. You know how I know that? Because anybody who uses this term usually uses this only to be able to get out of stuff. You ready? Y'all know, y'all probably already know what the term is before I say it. But anytime anybody wants to get out of anything, hey, how you doing, Sister Cassandra? Anytime anybody wants to get out of something and not be held accountable for something, you know what they say? Same thing every time. You know what they say? God knows my heart. Yep, somebody already knew where I was going. He knows my heart. God knows my heart. Yeah, he does. And he said it's sometimes your heart might be desperately wicked. So maybe you need to limit yourself. Stay in your lane. Your lane is where you're limitless. Outside your lane come with limits. The law comes with limits. That's why people don't like law, because you don't like limits. You want to be limitless. Only a lawless person, which the Bible says is a fool, by the way, but only a lawless person wants no limits. Anybody that's about law says, give me limits all day. I don't mind. Look, I don't think we need in certain places in the world. I don't think, and they don't in certain places in the world either. So let me say, certain places in the United States of America, I don't think we need speed limits. But if there's a speed limit, okay, like I'll follow it. You hear what I'm saying? Like, okay, like I might not need the speed limit, but okay, like if there's a speed limit, all right, I get it. If somebody says, hey, be careful going around this curve, they put up sign, they say, hey, I know the speed limit 70, but right here you might want to go 50. I get it. The limits are what's going to help us. Matter of fact, if I can be totally transparent real quick, well, I can't be totally in this regard, but if I can be a little transparent here, even a lot of stuff that happens with SOC that doesn't match up exactly when it needs to or whatever, or falls behind and stuff like that, that usually is because I got I'm not limited enough. We still don't have people in the right positions and stuff together, all that stuff. And so therefore, like there's certain things that it just gets to be too much. If I end up getting, like, we're not in a position yet to where if I end up getting sick or something like that, like things guaranteed to continue to move on without even any thought, somebody can just step right in. It's because it's not limited enough. Once it's limited more than what it is, then you'll see the real limitless stuff jump off. We already see the vision, right? Like in every area of your life, you should be looking for limits, right? It's the limits that cause the limitless. But people want to be limitless and run away from limits. And that's why a lot of people are messed up, right? A lot of people are messed up. Master Solomon needed to be able to get a little more sleep. He was kind of out of it. He's had a nice little weekend, but he was trying to press out here. Mama said, nope, you got to make sure you get some rest because he's looking kind of rough. But he was ready to be limitless, right? Or I'm sorry, he was ready to be limited. He was like, hey, 7 years old. You told me I had a born day break. I'm supposed to be on here with you, whatever. So he might be on the evening one, right? And be ready to go with that. But he understands, like, we've been talking about it for years. We're getting you ready. 7 years old in our culture, it's the age of 7 to 9. You're supposed to be with dad. So he was ready. I told him he could have a little break in the beginning, and then we would start working him in. He said no, like he was pressed for the day, and if he wasn't tired, right? But he understood, like, there's certain things I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna give up television. I'm gonna give up the phone and the risings. I'm gonna give up this. I got to make sure that my prayer is better now. Like he prays every rising, but now, hey, I got to make sure my prayers are longer. I got to be more consistent. I got to do all those things, and that's what I'm saying. Like that limit carries to him, and that limit now is going to allow what we're doing in our culture and in our kingdom and in our family to be limitless across generations. And that's when you become a success because you have a successor, right? I cannot be disciplined without limits. But when I'm disciplined, when I'm in my lane, can't nobody mess with me in my lane. I would even say except the Most High, and I don't mean this like to say I'm better than the Most High. Hear what I'm saying? I would say except the Most High, but the Most High doesn't want to be in my lane. He's okay with being in his, and he would like for me to carry on what I'm supposed to do in mine. That's why I'm called a vessel. He pours into me, but I'm just the vessel. But as a vessel, I'm unlimited with how much he can pour into me, right? As long as I keep pouring out, right? See, even in that, I don't even know. I don't even know if I'm doing what the justice that this really deserves. Aman, I really don't even know. If I just be honest with y'all, I hope I am. I hope it's getting to you somewhat. I'm not even sure because I'm feeling this in my spirit, and I'm trying to pour it out because what I'm trying to even say is like if I had, and I don't even have a cup. I wish I had a cup or something around. Is there something people be littering and all that? Okay, I don't even see a cup, but there's one, but it's too far. But anyways, imagine if I had, if you're the right, I have a cup, right, and in this cup I'm pouring, right, and in order for the right, and there's gonna be something to where it pours and it overflows and it stops once the overflow is there. What happens? You pour out the water or whatever's being poured into it. Let's just say the water, and then you tilt it back and then you pour into it again. Then that it pour out to somebody else they can drink, and then you pour it and you pour it in. And so it's supposed to be an eternal process, right? There's a limit to how much can be poured in, and the only way to get something is you got to pour out again in order to be poured into, right? It's a limitless thing. It's limitless because the source from the Father is limitless. It's universal, it's eternal, it cannot be turned off, right? But you can only be able to get what you are able to be filled with. And a lot of you guys cannot grow into anything because you're not able to pour out because you don't have limits. In your mind, you're supposed to get an overflow. And then you're trying to figure out why you're not getting anything poured into. Now, even if you want to pour out into somebody, I'm here to tell you, right? Whether it takes a years or months or a week or whatever, you know that eventually the water that's inside can evaporate, right? The water in the cup can evaporate. It can go away. And a lot of people are sitting up there saying, why am I not being poured into? Why do I feel like the Most High is not doing this? Why do I feel like this? Because you won't allow him to pour in anymore. He has to turn it off when you won't pour it into somebody else. I hope, Holy Spirit help me. I hope somebody's getting this, right? Like somebody, I don't know who this part is for. You know, a preacher say that, but I really mean it this time, right? Okay, thank you, Shadallah. Right, like I don't know who this is, but I'm trying to tell somebody. Somebody needs to hear this. I feel like this might be like 10, 15 people today. I don't even normally do this, right? But so those who've been with me know I don't really. This is like I'm just be obedient, right? This is not my normal here, but I'm whatever you want to call this, prophetic, whatever, right? Somebody needs to feel this today that like you haven't been pouring out, but you've been expecting pouring in. And so you're not going by the eternal process of in order to pour in, you got to pour out. Like you're not pouring out enough, or some of us are not pouring out at all. I used the term earlier. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for bringing this back to my remembrance. A lot of us are hoarding, right? How you doing, Chosen? A lot of us are hoarding, and you're trying to like your community should have been better. Like the land, y'all's land project. Some of y'all been thinking about getting together and getting land and purchasing stuff and putting money into something years before you even heard about SOC or Pastor Kofi, right? And yet you never did it. You haven't been pouring out. Some of y'all have been sitting up there knowing what you need to do to be a better husband or better wife, to be pre-qualified for marriage, and you haven't done it, right? And so you're at this crossroads where at some point you're going to have to pour out. Matter of fact, some of you have been so busy talking about that you can't do this, you can't do that, or whatever. And I'm not saying it's got to be SOC, even though if you're getting word from here, I guess like if I just be honest, I shy away from this, right? But some of y'all, especially my big sisters on here, y'all be getting on me about not just being outright and forthcoming with this. So let's just be what it is. I'm still not going to force anybody or be worried about tracking you or anything like that. But some of y'all have been and some of the brothers too, have been very much so on me about the fact that I don't even talk about giving back to the community enough. And I would say they're right. Part of me has a fear, if I be honest, not even a fear. Part of me has a respect. I'm not afraid, but part of me comprehends that a lot of people don't have, or some of this or that or whatever. But even in that, like there's a principle. And I'm not saying it's always got to be financial. Like some people can't give financial, but they type stuff up, or they call people on the phone, or they do different things, right? But here what I'm saying is that a lot of us have a mindset, and I had this mindset too, that people are supposed to give to you, but you're not really supposed to give out. I can't even say I really had that mindset. I never really carried that exact mindset, but I know what it was to be afraid to give because that's all you had, right? But like if you don't have no time, like people be like, I don't have no time for that. Well, you make time for McDonald's. Well, it's because I don't have time to cook. That's why I make time for McDonald's. Yeah, but you're making time for death. Like where are you sewing in? Like you make time to be able to get on your phone. I mean, some people that say they don't have no time found us on TikTok because they were scrolling one day, and after scrolling for 30 minutes, of time that they said they don't have, they came upon us. Now they had found more time to be able to listen to us, right? Some of you found time to meet us, right? Yeah, I know. I just talked about that earlier, Chosen, where some people say, understand because you talk about somebody else's culture. To stand under a principle, I have no problem with it. I stand under some of the principles of my aunt, right? It just means that I stand under a principle. If you want to overstand everything and want to be over it, there's certain things I don't need to be over. There's certain principles that I don't need to be over those principles. I'm under them. So if you want to go ahead, Aries, and you know that's your lane, then be in that lane, right? But I get what I'm saying, right? I'm not somebody that says that means I need to be under the white man, or under anybody else for that matter, right? I'm willing to be underneath it, but nevertheless, like you had this mindset. We have this mindset as a community, as a diaspora, even to where we've gotten this from other people. It used to be part of our culture to where if a woman was having a child, the community was going to take care of the woman. No, you don't have to, Chosen. I was just trying to let you know. I'm sorry if it came off as me chastising you or anything. It's just more so me letting you know. We talked about it earlier, so I was just trying to catch you up real quick, right? But we used to have a mindset in the diaspora where like if a woman gave birth in the community, everybody was going to give to that woman. That baby wasn't supposed to be without. We came over here and have a mindset now that you just got to try and keep whatever you want. It wasn't too long ago. We talk about this all the time. That we used to be the ones that were in 2-bedroom apartment, 17 people living in there, everybody riding in the same car. Now we make fun of Mexican people. We say that they're funny because they did it. That's how we came up. Now we're afraid to do what got us in come up. It used to be through segregation. It's always crazy to me when people, I'm not saying we need to be segregated, but it used to be through segregation and kingdoms and tribes and stuff like that. That was when you were at your best as a diaspora. That's when you had your most. That's when you made the most. That's when you had the most power. That's when you had the best education, all those different things, right? And now all of a sudden we want to come out of that. We need to just be American. The original American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. The original American was given, or even the non-original American that exists now, couldn't even come into existence without the Moorish or a Moroccan, right? The Moors had to say, yes, you can be that. Yeah, 8 people in the Pinto you rode in the window. Yeah, I know my parents, well, especially my father, they came up where everybody slept. All the boys slept in the same room. They had 5. They only had 5 children. I say only because back then it was acceptable to have a bunch of children. Now we like, oh, be careful of that. But how do you kingdom build and you ain't got nobody in the dominion, right? But nevertheless, nobody's in your domain, but you saying you building kingdoms. But it used to be they had a small family. They had 5 children. 4 boys slept together and 1 girl slept by herself. Like that's how we came up. But then as soon as we make it, what do? We say leave the hood, and we go to somebody else's. The reality is though that when you actually left the neighborhood because you had neighbors that actually were in the same diaspora, and you go to the hood because you ain't got no neighbors no more. You have to hope and pray that these neighbors are going to try and take care of you the way that your people would. And problem is though, even when you're in your neighborhood, your neighbors don't know how to be neighborly. But I'm trying to tell somebody. Let me get back into the Holy Spirit saying, let me get pressed back into this because somebody needs to feel like we don't ask. Like you guys know, we just ask for donations. We don't ask for payment on anything. There's certain things like the event coming up in October. Payment's still due by August 15th, by the way. But like the stuff coming up in October, that stuff we have to say, okay, yes, there's a specific donation. But even with classes and stuff, y'all know I ain't busting down nobody's door. I ain't doing this. I ain't doing that. I'm not calling you up 15 times. I'm not doing no credit check before we take you in. I'm not saying you got to go get a scholarship, right? Whatever. Even if you say you can start doing something, you take the classes and you don't. I say that's between you and y'all, right? But there comes a place to where you got to be limited. You got to be disciplined. At some point, like I realized in my life, all this stuff that I'm talking about now, when y'all see us traveling, when y'all see us moving, and we make less money, I promise you, like I don't put out our business, but I promise you, like some of y'all to think that y'all ain't making it and all this and being like, how they doing this and that or whatever. I promise you, we make less. Like most of y'all, we probably make less than you. Like people don't believe it, but because we're limited on certain things, right? We're trying to eat our own food. That saves money. We're limited, Like, we're not just traveling. We don't just go on trips for the sake of going on trips. Yeah, we're somewhere here, but guess what? We're gonna go somewhere. We're gonna meet with somebody. We're gonna check on somebody. Right? We're limited. I'm not. I'm coming on here. People say, "Oh, you just coming on here for this and that or whatever." I limit myself to this seat for 2 to 3 hours, no matter where I am in front of you, no matter what devices we're using. I do it every day that I can. Right? Just started taking a day off once a week. Right? Just started doing that. Right? But I'm limited. See, some people think that's limitless. No, I'm limited. That means for those hours, nothing else can come on. No call can be answered unless there's an emergency. No call can be answered, this and that or whatever, because I've got to be focused on this. I've prayed and gone through situations in my mind to where, what if something really dire happened? What if something happened? What if I lost somebody in my family and this and that or whatever? How many days would I take off? And the Holy Spirit has already told me this: how many days you're going to take off. This is what you got to do. You said you and your mother just talked about it in the 60s. The church and the community worked hand in hand. Yeah. I've told you guys, look up same author from Miseducation of the American Negro, Dr. Why am I forgetting his name? Dr. Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Look up his book on the history of the Black church. Remember, like, the Black church was part of the Black community. That's why people come to the Black pastors for everything. They don't go to white pastors the same they do for Black pastors. And in Black churches, they said, "Oh, that's a bad thing." No, like, that used to be how your culture was, because the pastor was actually not just the pastor on a Sunday. Like, the pastor was supposed to make sure that people were eating. He was supposed to make sure that communities were loved. We're supposed to make sure that we cherish each other. We're supposed to make sure that we took time out for one another. It was a guarantee that that's what your pastor was going to do. If he didn't do that, he wasn't a pastor. He wasn't a man. He wasn't a man to just leave you out there. Your family wasn't eating, but the pastor could eat. He was embarrassed by that. It was an embarrassment. It still is an embarrassment. Right. I told y'all, I'm nowhere close to it. It doesn't mean that we won't be, though. If I ever get to a place to where, and thank you for the love, appreciate it. If I ever get to a place to where I'm making millions or something like that, if I ever get there and somebody in this congregation is not eating, pull back all these recordings and call me out. I don't have a problem if somebody goes in a place and they barely got any money to keep the doors open, even though they should just make sure they get rid of the building until they can make sure that they can be in a position to keep some doors open. They can probably save some money, but nevertheless, right? If they can't keep the doors open, or they barely keep the doors open and have a hard time keeping the lights on, then they can't feed people. I get that, but if your pastor is making high five figures, and you got a musician making mid-level, 5 figures, and you got a secretary that's at least getting paid a stipend, at some point, somebody in there should make sure they can get a meal or two and not have to pay for it. That's just the way stuff works. Exactly. You could even look at it like that. Pastors were considered to be kings, but once again, heavy is the head that wears the crown. If you're going to be a pastor, if you're going to be a king, then everybody in your kingdom is supposed to eat, bare minimum. That's why it's different in our community. If you're actually what the Bible says you're supposed to be. Remember, biblical times. How you doing, Cash? In biblical times, how you doing, Leela? By the way, in biblical times, what are you doing? In biblical times, you got paid depending on what you did. So if you didn't offer anything to the community, we ain't give you no 10%. That's the way that worked. We gave 10% to people that we was like, oh, they doing what they supposed to do. Yeah, because they weren't supposed to have jobs. Remember, a Levite is not supposed to be in the field. We're in the land of our captivity, so that we don't do that anymore. But a Levite's not supposed to be in the field. He's supposed to be limited. So he only eats if he does what he's supposed to do. His family only eats if they do what they're supposed to do. Like, it was so serious. That's where that scripture comes when you guys talk about the person who said that, like, she came to the prophet and she said, and he said, "What's in your house?" And she said, "Nothing but a vat of oil," basically a pot of oil, something with oil inside a pot. That was all she had, and she poured it out, and then she was able to get more and more. That happened because, if you know how the culture is, her husband would have been a Levite. He would have been a preacher. He would have been a pastor, whatever you want to call his position. And when he died, that meant that his house and everything that was there, like, she was now responsible for it, because he was supposed to protect her. He was supposed to take care of her. All of a sudden, he dies. So she was getting ready to sell her boys. She had 2 sons. She was getting ready to make them indentured servants. Now they say sell them into slavery. That wasn't the same culture. It actually is translated better as saying she would have made them indentured servants. That meant that in order for her to keep the house, she was going to give her boys to somebody. They were going to learn a trade, basically. They were going to learn whoever their teacher, or what we call master, was. They would learn the trade. They had to be in their home. They would sleep there, maybe even married to their family, depending on how everything worked out. But they would have a contract for a certain amount of years, and that master was going to have to make sure that the mother in the house was taken care of. And she didn't want to. She wanted to live with her boys. She didn't want them to be indentured servants. So she basically cried out to the prophet, and the prophet basically says, like, what are you yelling at me about? Like, like, she's like, I had to do this and blah blah. And like, what do you want? What do you want from me? He asked her, like, what do you want? And she didn't even know how to voice her concern. She was just, once again, remember we talked about the soul. Her soul is all over the place. So he basically like gave her something to breathe. He's like, what do you want from me? Like, what is it that you want? You yelling at me about the house. I get it. What do you actually want? What can I actually provide? How may I serve you? She couldn't give him an answer. When you read it, she didn't even have an answer for it. She was just kind of like, kind of like frustrated. So then he says, okay, tell me, what do you have in your house? The spirit comes upon him. He says, what do you have in your house? She's like, I don't have anything in here of value except for like a pot of oil. So he says, keep pouring it until it won't pour out anymore. Get all the vats that you have in your house and put it together. And so she just kept pouring and pouring and pouring. It was miraculous, right? And he said the same thing you have in there, and really it was because, if you know the culture, because of the connection. You were married, the connection, the sex, the marriage. You were connected. You were one with this man of Yah. And so because of the connection and his faithfulness, even in his death, that faithfulness and your faithfulness down to your sons as well, and your belief in the same Levite, even though your Levite husband is not being respected because they're not helping you anymore, your still belief in calling out to me. And even if you don't know what to do, I will make sure that through the Most High, of course, you can be provided for. Because even the fact that you were married to him, you should not toil. So she poured all the oil out, right? And then she had no more left. And then he said, okay, cool. Sell everything that you have and don't ever worry about anything again. She was still taken care of for the rest of her life. She was still going to be taken care of for the rest of her life, like, because of what she had, right? We gave to our community. We took care of one another. If we saw somebody that needed something, even if it was miraculous, once again, we talked about it before, it was miraculous to some, it's not miraculous to us, right? But we did whatever we had to, and we made it, right? She was afraid. She was thinking about she was going to have to put her boys into indentured servitude. And he was like, well, look, all you got to do is tell me how to serve you. And she couldn't even come up with that. He said, okay, even if you can't come up with the way, I got you. Right? He understood she's limited. She's not supposed to. She's a wife. She's not supposed to do this stuff. Can you imagine that? I'm not saying, once again, remember the Proverbs 31 woman. It says that, she's known in the streets and she has a great business acumen and all those great things, right? But, can you imagine if our sisters knew that no matter what happened, that the community had their back? All right, Jacob, be safe out there. Your cop. Could you imagine that? If our sisters knew, without a shadow of a doubt, they could have their own business or whatever they want, but if they bare minimum always knew, hey, you know what? Like, we have a place we can be at, we got land we can be at, we can do whatever. We know that no matter what, they have, like, our brothers have our back. Our husbands have our back. Our sons have our back. Matter of fact, if you even get deeper into the question I was asking earlier, when he said, what do you want me to do about it? You'll actually find that part of what he was saying is that in the culture, you would first of all go, if the husband passed away, first thing you would do is you would see, well, is there a brother of the husband or somebody that can take care of things, right? If that's not the case, well, maybe the boys would be old enough. Can they take care of their mother? You would look to the family first. And if the family couldn't help, then the community would step in and say, okay, we got you. So before we would even use the tithe, because tithes were not just only for preachers, tithes were for the Levites, for the widows, for the orphans, for the poor, for the strangers, for the aliens, for those who we would call now, I think I said it right, all these different people, right? But could you imagine if we had a community where elders and pastors and Levites only focused on the word, not focused on trying to make sure that they made you comfortable with the word, because they got to get paid by the world, right? but it comes from being limited. We're so busy being unlimited that we're not limited. You know, pastors are not supposed to be paid by the world. Why your pastor getting paid by the world, but you want a kingdom message. You don't want a message of the world, but you want your pastor to get paid by the world. Where they do that at? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You got a ministerial staff. Eventually, they got to come out the world too. That's why their businesses got to get jumping. But eventually, it's supposed to be on us as a community. They got to come out this too. I praise y'all that I was able to, through the faithfulness of my faithfulness, be able to create something to where, we're okay and stuff like that. And my wife was too, but you're not. One of the reasons why you say, well, how am I able to give a word that other people might not be able to give? Because I haven't had to worry about being in the world. I mean, I don't know how many years it's been. Like I've had little things here or there as far as side hustles, but as far as actually having to do a 9 to 5 because I have to do it. I mean, I don't know if I've done anything like that since 2000. I guess you could say 2012. I guess. Right? There's time that I have. And before that, there were years that I didn't do anything either. Right? Exactly. As Sister also just said, pastors who are paid by the world, they can be manipulated by the world. Matter of fact, your churches go by worldly pay systems. Those pastors get paid by the hour or by the Sunday or by the sermon. Right? Those pastors still have to pay taxes. Right? They're of the world. So if they're of the world, then guess what? Like you can get fired by the world too. These 501c3, that's why I'm careful to make SOC. We're not a 501c3 because the second you're a 501c3, guess what? You know what can happen? This has happened legally. Somebody steps in. You guys have heard stories about this. Somebody comes into your church. They're any kind of LGBTQ plus couple. They say, you're going to marry us. You said, we don't believe in that here. First of all, you should have bylaws and stuff in place anyways. If you have bylaws and basically you have something to protect yourself, you can bring that before the judge as a trustee, and that judge will say, yeah, everything is fine with what they say because they base it off of their belief system. But there's a lot of churches that don't know law, of course, and they don't follow it. They don't believe in it. And so somebody comes in there. They say, hey, we want to get married. 2 men want to get married. 2 women want to get married. They say, we don't do that here. They take them to court. Guess what happens? They get to say, your church can be sued now. Or think about how many pastors have been fired before. Pastors get fired all the time. How you fire somebody that Yahweh's put in place? Now, if they wilding out, I guess I could see that. Like if they cheating or they get caught in some scandals or they're saying something that's not the Bible, I would sit them down probably first. But, still. But you got to be careful. Like you go to these places. Yeah, we can fire the pastor. We don't like what the pastor's saying, we fire him. That's what they do in the world. They hire and they fire. I mean, heck, nowadays it's got to a place where some of these churches, people are trying to publicly trade churches, trying to get them to where they can be publicly traded. When do we get to a place where that? People try. People saying, yeah, make your church an LLC. That way nobody owns it. Well, why would you not want Yahweh to own it? Make sure you got trustees. Well, why are you trying to make it a trust to where nobody owns it? I'm not, and people get into these places. That's why you got to comprehend even sovereignty and how you look at these legal prisms and things. You got to look through Yahweh's legal prism, not through the world's. We got to be limited. We got to be limited. And people try to live unlimited. Let's make sure we got trustees. We'll make a trust. Nobody owns it, but the trustees basically get to fire the pastor. I know you don't think that's the way it works, but that's the way it works. If you got to trust, let's say the pastor makes one mistake. Normally you make one mistake. Maybe you can sit the pastor down. Maybe the pastor gets up, he apologizes. I'm not even talking about cheating. I'm saying, maybe he taught something wrong, realized that it was wrong, whatever. It was something that caused frustration, for people or whatever. Everybody gets to sit down, and you guys get to sit down as family, work it out, and you keep moving on together, right? But if it's a trust, and somebody don't like the pastor or whatever, and they mention it, let's say a judge gets involved, a judge can come on and say, up that pastor and do what they were supposed to do. And they turn the church into whatever they want. They take the money, all that stuff, because you thought that you were dealing with something that was causing sovereignty. And the reality is you actually came out of sovereignty and you gave it back to the world. right? I'm trying to tell somebody, long story short, that you got to start pouring out, and you got to start pouring out, and you got to start trusting, and you've got to start, uh, you got to start having limits, man. There's limits to this. I apologize for moving around a lot. I've been sitting on this hard bench for 2 days now on these lives. This thing hurts. But you got to develop limits. You got to develop limits for this, man. I don't know how to be. I got both of these devices in two different levels. I'm trying to find a way to do this, but you gotta be limited. You gotta find a way to be limited, and a lot of us are not limited. A lot of us are trying to do everything we can except limits. A lot of us trying to provide everything we can except limits. Provide limits for your children. It'll be one of the best gifts you ever given. You said do some squats. Well, it's not about that. It's like my behind is hurting. It's not the squat. Too much energy, too much information, But I'm just saying, like, we gotta get to a point to where, like, it's, where we start being more limited. Be limited in your cash flow, right? Something that'll teach you more finance. And some people don't want to hear this. Something that's going to teach you more financial discipline than you've ever had before, right? Something that's going to teach you something different than you've ever financially than you ever had before is to give tribute, is to give tithe. And if you don't want to give it to a particular congregation, I think that it's important to overall, like I do it still to this day, I think it's important to overall to give to somebody above you or to give to something above you or whatever. But even if you don't want to give to a church organization or whatever, I get it why you don't. You just don't feed from them. I feel like it's weird to feed from somebody and never give back in any way, shape, or form. Like, at least give words of encouragement or something like that, bare minimum. But if you don't want to, like, try and do it with some of these places that feed the children, or some of the places given to places in Haiti, or some of the things that are being done for people in your community or whatever. It's going to teach you things that you never thought as far as discipline. Like, one of the things we try to tell people is, look, if you can give 10% to us or something like that, those who do tithes and stuff like that, then guess what? If you can give 10% to us, then guess what? We need to teach you how to live off of 10% eventually. You said you argue so much about just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah, that's true. But a lot of people, like, are just like, it's one of the best things that'll teach you anything. Like, a lot of people don't know how to deal with finances. A lot of people don't know how to deal with their gifts. Give 10% of your gifts to something and see what starts happening, because you realize that you're disciplined in the 10%, and you'll get a lot of stuff done with that 10%. You know what you start doing? You'll start saying, man, if my gifts help with the 10% that I give to this corporation, maybe I should give 10% to my community. You'll be like, wow, giving 10% to my community, so maybe I should give 10% of that to myself. Watch your business start growing. That's the mindset of it. It's to teach you how to be able to give to your community ultimately, right? Um, uh, Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, right? And try me, test me, prove, test me. Bring all of them into the storehouse and see if they will, and make meat in my house, and see if I will not pour you out that blessing that you're looking for. Like, test it out. Test out giving to something bigger than yourself. Test out, like, I promise you. I promise you, it's going to make you more disciplined. When I got to give 10% of what I make to somebody or to something above me, bigger than me, etc., it tests me every time. Right? But I promise you, like, what happens is it even becomes, it's not only that it becomes easier, it becomes habitual. And once that habit is there, right? Once you've made it a habit, this is the cool piece, is you will grow. And when you grow, your percentage doesn't have to grow, but what makes up your percentage grows. What does that mean? So if you're only making 1,000 a month right now, try and find a way to give 100 of that to somebody bigger than you, or something that's doing something that you support, something that feeds into you too, right? So some people will give the stuff that never feeds them, something that feeds into you too. Like, there's some of these organizations that will take your money and will never give you anything. Like, at least have it to where you can talk to the person. If you've given to feed the children or something like that, or helping somebody with school or something, at least have it to where they give you something back in return, or you can at least talk to the person that you're giving to or whatever, right? But always make sure it's something that's the principle is whatever you're sowing into should also be able to sow something back into you, right? But once you do that, peep game. Let's say you only got 1,000 a month, you start giving 100 a month to whatever cause it is. Then once you start making 2,000, guess what? You just give 200. Now you're giving more, but you're making more. So it's not gonna mess you up. Before you were giving 100 and you were only making 900. Now you're giving 200 and you're making 1,800. They both gonna double. Then when you get to 4,000 a month, guess what? Like that's gonna be you get 400, but you're gonna keep 3,600. So you're actually making more and giving more, right? That's the principle, right? In order to make more, you give more. In order to give more, you make more. It goes hand in hand. And be limited now. See, the problem is that some of us only got $10, and we won't give $1 because we're like, man, you know what? I only got $10 as is. Why would I give $1 to somebody in the street, or why would I give $1 to some person or some organization, this and that, or whatever? You can't afford nothing but $10 anyways. Just go ahead and roll with 9, give somebody $1, and start living by that principle now. See, what'll happen is, and then if you start really living by the principle, remember I said if you can give 10, you can start learning how to live by 10. If you make $100 a month, right? If you only got $10 in your pocket, right? Start giving $1 to somebody, and start keeping $1 for yourself, right? Because there ain't much difference in between 8 and 10, anyways. Now, if you got $20 in your pocket, start giving $2 to somebody, and start keeping $2 for yourself and investing. Ain't gonna make much difference. Shalom, Minister Sonia. Ain't gonna make much difference, right? Ain't much difference in between 20 and 16. Might as well. Hey, watch this. Now you get to $100. Take $10 and bless somebody who's blessing you, right? And sowing into you, and then keep $10 for yourself. And believe it or not, there's not much difference in between $80 and $100. You said try and buy someone food once a week. That's great. Right, but what I'm saying is, like, do your tithe, do that tribute, right? Like, and what you discover is whatever it is, it starts becoming a lifestyle. See, watch this. Like some of you are praying and asking for money and not thinking about should I do it for his namesake? In his namesake and his reputation, he wants you to give to somebody else. So instead of asking for $4,500, you need to ask for $5,000 so that you can make sure, right? Instead of asking for $4,000, you need to ask for $5,000. Why? Because you need to make sure that you can give somebody $500 and sow it into you, and you need to make sure that you get $500 for somebody sowing into you, and you need to be able to get $500 into something that's yourself, that you're doing for yourself, into your land or whatever. Right? Like that's the goal. Like, so, when I make something or whatever, I'm making something, I know a whole bunch of it's already going to something greater than I. Someone that's sowing into me, right? Not just family gonna come first and everything, right? But even before them, I've got to sow into the kingdom. I've got to sow into those that have sown into me. I've got to sow into those that when I was at my lowest or whatever, they made sure that they took care of me for years and allowed me, even without being able to get a job, allowed me to be able to make sure that I was still able to do things for the kingdom. Checked on me, made sure I could, travel to different places or whatever. Put money in my pocket, things like that. Like, yeah, why shouldn't I get back to that? And so as I grow, I look for places to serve. I look for places to be limited. If I get a certain amount of money, I already know 80% of it is what I'm dealing with. 20% isn't even mine. 10% technically you could say is mine, but I'm investing it into something that's for us. And then the other 10% is going to something that's greater than I. But when I sow into something that's sowing into me, when I give to that, it's giving back to me anyway. There's a principle there, right? When a tree, right? I'm around palm trees and stuff. I'm around some different vegetation. When a tree gives a seed into the ground, when that tree sows a seed into the ground, guess what's going to happen? When that tree sows that seed into the ground, it's expecting a return. It's giving of itself. It's sacrificing itself. It's not going to keep the seed to itself. Sometimes it's even designed, some of the seed is designed to be able to float and to fly all over the place. So where it gets to another destination, it can still grow. Right? The tree is limited. It can't keep that seed for itself. It has limits. And once again, the question is, do you have limits? What are your limits? What are you willing to limit? What limits are you willing to stay in? If you're willing to stay in the lane, then there's guarantees that you're going to do some things that are limitless. If you're not willing to stay in the lane, don't look for the limitless. Don't look for an overflow, right? If you're not in position to even accept what's poured. And Yah doesn't just pour into anybody or anything. He pours into things that are disciplined, disciples, limited. You said even your time is limited, right? Yeah. And by the way, we only get so much time in a day. So even that in of itself, your time is limited. However, like you would think about what, is even deeper in what Minister Nice is saying, like, how much time am I going to give towards certain things? So if I tithe, guess what I do? I tithe my time. It would make sense that so some people, they say, man, why would you spend so much time on a live session? Well, to me, it would make sense that the beginning of my day would start with this much time being given to the community, because there's 24 hours in a day. So 10% of that is what? But if I can give that much time towards you guys, then I should be able to give that much time towards myself. Right? If I can give that much time towards you all, I should be able to give that much time towards myself and my family. If I can invest this much time in teaching and stuff into you, then how much more so should I make sure that I'm listening to things and reading things and other things of that nature? My wife, she just ties into what we're doing. For Father's Day, she got me an amazing book, and it's on speaking and how to be able to try and make, more financial gain on speaking and things of that nature. So we're going to see what happens with it. Hopefully, those words that she's just bought and sewn into me for Father's Day, it turns into something that gets us to a place to where, whether people are giving donations or not, we still roll and rolling more, right? So when I finish with this, I got something to be able to sow into myself. I've got something that'll sow into generations to come. Amen, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit said, that's it. I don't have anything else. I probably went a little over time, so let me be obedient before I get a spiritual whooping, so to speak. Thank you all for being on. We appreciate the King, Queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside that kingdom of queendom yet, we appreciate the potential King, Queen in each and every one of you. We're praying for those that are traveling. Stay safe today, whether you're on your way to your work, your job, your destinations, etc. Pray for us as we get ready to travel. Hopefully we'll be back in place by the time it's time for Hebrew characters. Either way, we'll have our Hebrew characters class this evening. Those who have been in classes will be looking forward to some recordings from this week. And thank you again for everybody. Happy Father's Day again to the fathers. Happy Juneteenth again to the diaspora. Happy Born Day to Master Solomon. Happy Born Day to those of you who have born days or had children or family members that have born days as well. We're so appreciative, and thank you to everybody for being on. Remember, October 14th through the 16th is coming up pretty soon. Because I lost my voice, I know we got to make up some phone calls for people that we were supposed to talk about things and get you some hotel information. So we'll try to get that to you ASAP. Those of you who have class, we should be back on track. And we'll be back on the live on TikTok later on, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. We'll see you guys for Hebrew characters at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. And thank you so much for your patience. We appreciate you. We honor you. And you guys continue to do great things, okay? So remember, if you're meeting up with us in Detroit, October 14th through the 16th, or if you're even saying a maybe to it, we do need to have a conversation soon, and we do need to make sure that the payments are done. We do have a sign up for you if you need to sign up on the sheet and everything. Let us know. And those of you, we will be doing sometime maybe the last week, or the first couple weeks or something like that. Sometime around then we'll be going on a I told you this umbrella was gonna try and blow away. It will last it all the way to the end. But hopefully we'll have what was I gonna say? We'll be going across country because we got to do some planting of different things on the East Coast and the West Coast and possibly in between. So we'll be doing some traveling. So we'll try to let people know where we'll be at. We probably won't be hitting up north again. What I probably will be doing when we get to like the central place, we'll probably be like central / north, south rather, southern, like Texas, kind of, sort of, and do like a little line across before we go over to the West Coast to try and visit as many people as we can. So hopefully we'll see you guys soon. We thank you so much. We appreciate you. We honor you guys. Wide receiver. Hey, that's my position, 6'5.5". Throw it in the air. But we thank you guys. Amen. My wife said Food Network begins. So we're looking forward to a lot of different things, a lot of great things going on, including even the celebration of my wife's born day that'll be coming up August 16th. So many great things happening. We appreciate you guys. We thank you again. Once again, we give praise to the Most High for everything we talked about. We also ask you guys to be students as well, to study this word so that you can not only be hearers of it, you can be doers as well. Please check out my wife's TikTok page, YouTube page, website, and Pinterest page at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And we're excited about other things going on there. And yeah, I think that's all we have. So thank you so much. Thank you again. We appreciate you. And we look forward to seeing you guys later this evening. And as always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking unspoken. And so we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, y'all still, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.